YouTube to go live, then.
Okay,
We're good.
okay. We'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. This is Planning Commission meeting for August 22nd. I have you for the opening prayer.
Okay.
This meeting is being recorded. Our opening prayer this evening will be given by Commissioner Danielson. And then I have Commissioner Showers as the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wonderful.
Okay. And we'll go ahead.
Okay.
Probably need to stand up.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're glad to meet here tonight, and we pray that we may be able to accomplish the things that we need to in a good, peaceful manner, and that we will be able to find some good solutions and resolutions. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're missing. Okay, we're going to begin our meeting with an audible roll call of commissioners. Sharon Call here. Mike Marchbanks hasn't arrived yet. Jared Showers.
here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Stephen Johnson.
Here.
And Karen Danielson. Here. And Scott Thompson is excused this evening. Okay. And we have received the minutes from July 11th, 2023. Commissioners have had a chance to review those minutes. Do you have any corrections or additions to the minutes? Anyone? Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. The first item on our, item number 3, this is a time for public comment. This would be for any items not already on the agenda for this evening. Is there anyone here for that purpose? Okay, we'll go to item number 4. This is a conditional use permit for Smiles LLC, 948 East 15 North.
That's right.
And our applicant is, well,
My name is David Doxey.
David Doxey.
I'm the owner of the residence, and my wife is actually the applicant, but
Right.
I am an attorney if that, yeah, I can represent her if I
Oh,
need
that's
to.
fine. Okay. And our presenting staff is Mary Barnes. And we'll go ahead.
Cool, thank you. This down. All right, so this item is regarding a residential preschool located at 948 East 50 North here in Lindon. As a quick overview, this preschool will be subject to the home occupation code within Lindon City, which has many requirements, and then to follow that, basically ensure that this preschool will have a low impact on the neighborhood. So Small Smiles, according to their business description, will operate from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, and they're only going to have 7 kids, ages 3 to 5 years old, according to the state child care licensing office. That means they don't need to obtain a child care license. So with 7 students, the applicant has 716 square feet of area. This will be located above a detached garage that has already been built on the property. According to home occupation standards, the applicant must obtain a home occupation business license, which will be approved and released if this conditional use permit is approved. It has to, I'll just go through some of these home occupation standards. Has to be clearly incidental and secondary to the residential use of the dwelling unit. It is not in the dwelling unit, so it doesn't meet that requirement. It is carried, will be carried on entirely within the accessory structure. It will be carried on by the resident of the immediate family living there, Leslie. It will have only one employee, Lindsay Charrington, and then it will not have any external evidence. And I will pull up the site plan that was provided. So, according to this site plan, it shows 6 possible parking spaces on the actual property, plus a drop-off pickup area that is only in front of the property. Staff made sure to work with the applicant to ensure that no drop-off pickup would be in front of anyone else's property in the cul-de-sac. So, no more than 6 cars shall be parked at any time, which meets the requirement, and frankly, it's probably going to be much less than 6 cars parked at any time. It won't generate more than 5 vehicles of traffic within an hour. According to the applicant, not more than 5 cars will be there at a time because the drop-off and pickup will be so staggered over such a large period of time. I said in my staff report from 8:45 a.m. to 12 p.m., but she actually said 8 to 12, on Saturday. So it is a large, amount of time for 7 kids. And then it shall not generate traffic before 7:30 a.m. or after 6 p.m., which meets all those home occupation requirements. So some added conditions that staff is recommending is essentially to meet those home occupation requirements. And then also, if the hours of operation increase to more than 4 hours a day, obtain a child care license from the child care licensing office. A neighbor did email staff earlier this week to state that they're in favor of this conditional use permit. We forwarded that email to you. Another neighbor called earlier last week to ask about the scope of the business and was satisfied with the low impact that it will have on her neighborhood. So as just a quick reminder, all home occupation business licenses are subject to review upon complaint as well as conditional use permits. So I know we've had issues with residential daycares or preschools in the past, but if that happens, if the use increases to a point where there are complaints, then it will be reviewable by the Planning Commission. We can add more conditions or technically also revoke the business license, but would probably be more of a review. Anyways, therefore, staff believes that this home occupation as described will have a low impact on the neighborhood. Any questions for me or Mr. Doxey?
Just on the requirement number 4 in the motion for 6 vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that also includes their vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
So a total of 6 vehicles.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I just wanted to clarify that that's what that meant, is that there's...
And to be clear, on the map, we show 6 external parking places. There's actually 4 garages as well, on the property where we owners park.
And so I guess, would that ever be a problem? I'm just worried about for him, if he's got 4 garages and he has 8 cars parked in those 4 garages, he exceeds the 6 just with his own vehicles.
Just with
I
his
don't know
own
if that's going to be a problem or...
It won't be a problem at all. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just saying we have lots of space.
Yeah, I'm more worried about a home that has teenagers or whatever,
Yeah.
so that becomes a problem, but...
Yeah, we don't have any teenagers. It's just my wife and I, and our only employee, Lindsay Charrington, is our daughter,
Okay,
You go.
that's the situation.
so that's not a problem for that. Okay, that was my main
Okay.
question.
And it sounded like,
Yeah.
excuse me, reading through this, that some of your students will be walking students also.
There could be, yeah. We have, right now, honestly, we meet them at the curb and just walk up, and there's, the cars are there for 5 minutes just to drop off their child, and then they walk up, the driveway. So it's I guess they could walk from within the neighborhood, but right now, they're just all being dropped off right there, and then they walk up. It's a little, I'd say up, it's on a hill. So,
And I would expect there's probably more of a chance of multiple cars being there at pickup time,
yeah.
if they arrive
there would
early to
be.
pick up their kids, but.
Yeah, there would be. It's the way the classes are staggered, though, it shouldn't present a problem, so.
Question?
I did. Just for my information, how do people get to your home? What's the typical driving route? Is it Center Street?
It depends which way they're coming, but they could come up Center, I live on 50 North, okay? So they could come up Center Street, and then 940 East is just 900 Templeview Drive, you know, so, you know, coming from the north or the south, it's a half a block north of Center Street and a half a block east, so
Okay.
I think there's lots of egress and, you know,
Center Street has become just an absolute
yeah.
Disaster.
joke in the mornings when there's two schools and garbage day and, boy, you're taking your temple construction, but
This starts at 9, so that should help.
Help.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not right during the
The worst
peak.
of the traffic.
Yeah, so.
I don't have any other questions as I look through all the required standards. It appears to be compliant. Does anyone else have comments or questions? And just note that Commissioner Marchbanks has joined us. Okay, are we ready for a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay. I move to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use a residential property located at 948 East, 50 North for an in-home preschool business with the conditions 1 through 9 as listed in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Have a great day.
Huh? Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing. And so we do need to open a public hearing.
I move to open public hearing.
I have a motion to open a public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. This is item number 5. It's an ordinance amendment, 18.03.030 for pole signs. And our presenting staff on this is Michael Florence. And our applicant is Lindon City, and so we'll turn the time to you.
Yep, our applicant is actually Doug Smith Kia. So, so I apologize on that. That was a mistake on the staff report on my part.
Oh, and
but
the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, and do we have, are you from Doug's?
Yes, I
I thought you were. I thought I recognized you from before. If you'd like to come up, that would be great.
All right.
Okay, tell us your name one more time.
Dave Smith.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Doug Smith Kia has made an application to amend the city sign code to allow for pole signs in the planned commercial zone. Now that planned commercial zone, it basically consists of 6 properties. It's this gold color here. So you've got the Home Depot, Les Schwab, Discount Tire, the Lexus dealership, and the Hyundai dealership right now. So, and then this map isn't up to date, but if you remember, we rezoned this back to planned commercial a couple months ago as well. So
Those are the only ones in the city.
that's correct. Yep. And so, let me go back to the staff report real quick. So what, currently the city does allow pole signs. We allow them in what we call the transit overlay. And so what that is, you take the middle of, it's kind of this imaginary zone. It's not necessarily on the zoning map, but what you do is you take the center line of I-15, you go out 500 feet, and that's your transit zone. And so in that, what this yellow box represents is kind of the boundaries of that transit zone. So within that transit zone, you can have a pole sign. You can have one that's up to 250 square feet. There's a separation requirement between the different pole signs, so not every property owner does receive one. I think that's just so I-15 doesn't look overcrowded with large pole signs, but you can have, again, you can have up to 35 feet in height or 25 feet above the freeway, and it can be 250 square feet in size. As you know, the Doug Smith Kia is under construction. We worked with Dave and his family to they were looking at this site. We tried our best and were successful in recruiting them to come here to Lindon. The city's redevelopment agency also worked with them on an incentive, and so as far as city staff feels, we feel supportive of this ordinance amendment to help drive business to this new development. So the proposed changes to the sign code that we're proposing is that pole signs also be allowed in the planned commercial zone 1 zone, and so it would only apply now to 7 properties instead of it would apply to those 7 properties. There are some buildings, let me go back over to here, there are some properties that already have pole signs. So for example, this PC2 zone, that's a car dealership there. Hyundai has a couple, or has one, Lexus has one, and the Discount Tires. So there's 3 or 4 of them already along that I-15 corridor. Those are the only ones so far. So what the ordinance would amend is the following language. It would say pole signs are only permitted along I-15 in the travel influence district and in the PC1 zone. And then it would say proposed language in the PC1 zone, signs are limited to 35 feet in height from the base of the sign and not to exceed 250 square feet of display area. So I took out the height requirement that's found in the other parts of the travel influence zone, saying 35 feet or 25 feet above the freeway, because this far away that sign could be pretty tall. So what this says is just limiting it to 35 feet like the rest of the what else is found in that zone. And then all other requirements of the section for pole signs is applicable. So with that, let me show you what they're proposing, what the sign would look like. So it'd be this Kia sign here on top of the pole. And so Dave and I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Do you know the exact location of where they'd put it?
Do you want me to, I could find a site plan.
The front, I guess that would be the southwest corner of the lot. I don't know if you have a picture of the lot. It's kind of along the border of where the Home Depot is,
Okay, that makes sense.
near the entrance.
I was just wondering if it was going to impact the businesses across the street that have a view,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they're.
I don't think so. Yeah, right where his cursor is in that little pad there should be
Yeah,
would be the location.
Is it just gonna say Kia, or is this an electronic sign that's gonna be changing, flashing things on it?
It's not an electronic sign. It's just just stationary. That the Kia lettering would light up at night, but everything else is just stationary.
I am just wondering what some of the other, like the Lexus dealership or some of those other businesses Hyundai, what their signs look like. I can see the need for a pole sign. It really does look like a pole
Yeah.
sign. And so I'm wondering, you know, some of those others look a little more dressed up than this does. Is there a possibility of, so it's just not that stark pole on the bottom?
So that is, we're sort of constrained, we're constrained a little bit to the Kia's restrictions or their rules on how the signs go. They have so some of those dealerships, I think Murdoch has, Murdoch and the Lexus store, they all have monument signs
Right, they
that
do.
look like that.
They do, and that was one of the things I wondered about.
Kia has that. They have a version of that. It's 25 feet tall, and the Kia lettering's very small, so it would really be of no value to our location. I don't think, the value of the sign we're trying to get is that it's a little bit bigger, the face of it's bigger, and the height would be 10 feet taller and would get some more visibility from the freeway or off the freeway as people are driving by.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have options as far as a possible monument-type base?
Like that one.
You're asking more like this?
Right, or the Lexus one, is that?
And Hyundai has changed their sign. They've removed this sign here, and theirs looks just like the Lexus
Yes.
one.
So
You're right.
there are two of them that look just like that.
Right.
And those, I think, because they're right on the freeway, I think they have some worth because they can be seen. And so I can't do much about the sign other than ask Kia if they would modify it at all. The Kia dealership in South Jordan does have this sign installed, and it is pretty much to spec. Other than I think the pole is black, but it is still the same pole.
I don't know if the thoughts of any other commissioners on that, or?
To me, there is a big difference being right out on the freeway versus back in, to where the height is probably the most important thing, so it was seen and not just a waste of money. And you start going taller, and the practicality of a monument sign versus a pole sign, there's some real practical reasons why you wouldn't do a monument real tall.
One thing Dave and I talked about was, could you cover the pole like this? And he was going to check with Kia to see if, that's an option.
I like that better.
I'm happy to ask Kia
Okay.
about that. I don't know. Again, like we kind of work within their constraints, so we're working with their constraints and also the city's constraints. So
Right.
we're kind of in the middle a little bit. But yeah, if the bigger sign itself would definitely be a value and help drive traffic, I believe, more so than the monument signs actually that they have look bigger than what Kia has. Kia's, like I said, Kia's are 25 feet tall, and the Kia lettering looks to me like it's about 5 feet down, so it's about 20 feet off the ground, and it's much smaller lettering. It would just not be seen from very far away.
Okay.
It actually looks like the pole has, that is a shroud that goes around it.
And I think it would,
It's just a
be-
pole.
yeah, and because of, yeah, it is, I don't know exactly the material of it, but it does, I think it looks taller in this picture than it would be because of the 35 feet restriction. I think the sign itself is 8 feet. That top black section is 8 feet tall. So the bottom would be basically 27 feet.
Yeah. So
Did I do my math right?
can you go back to
On the
the
spot.
ordinance? let's see, right there in the red, what the two added there. The zone, was it
So this,
30?
yeah, this is just allowing it in the PC1 zone, and then these are the standards here.
And 35 feet in height, 250 square feet of display area. So this is actually smaller than what is
Yeah, this is
permitted.
150 square feet.
You said there was one at the South Jordan, like this?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's on Google Maps or not.
I'm trying to
because
see if I can
It's been
find
up
it
for
real
maybe
quick.
6
Yeah.
months. I sent you a picture, Mike.
It is, but I don't think they've moved over to the new logo, or I can pull that up. It's at the Jerry Signer.
Maybe just get an idea of what it looks like from a street view.
Yeah, that's still the
That's the
old
old
one.
But the pole would probably be roughly the same. I mean, it looks like it has the tiers, kind of.
Yeah, that looks a little taller.
I
Right
think
there.
that's taller, and I think that is taller.
The tiers are purely an engineering
Right.
standpoint.
I sent a picture of the South Jordan one to you, though. Do you have that?
I don't. Let me log in. I can log into my email real quick.
I like the new logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks. The only person that's told me they don't like it is my mother.
Is that
Is
right?
that right?
Yeah.
She likes the red?
Yeah, she says she can't read Kia, and I understand that, but
It looks good on the cars, too.
yeah.
Well, that would be, my only comment on it is to, I guess reach out to corporate and see if there's anything other than the pole that can make it look a little more attractive as far as, I don't know.
I just resent it to you, Mike.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that's something that staff could work with you on. I think what we're doing tonight is deciding whether pole signs can be permitted in the PC1 area, for this in the PC1 area. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
We're just recommending two.
So, yeah, and we are recommending where it is a public hearing to the city council. So, any other comments on that as far as, do you have any concerns with pole signs being permitted? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here from the public that has concerns or wants to speak up on this? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing then?
Sure. I'll move to close the public hearing.
I second it.
Okay, a motion to close the public hearing in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So we'll bring that back up to the commission for any additional comments or.
I think the sales tax base and this business is going to be a great addition to Lindon. So
Absolutely.
I want to support them in any way we can. And I personally don't see anything wrong with the design.
Okay,
So that's my opinion.
I'm the same, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And Jared?
I think the pole sign is less obtrusive than a big monument sign as far as the aesthetics around
Okay.
there. I mean, the whole idea is just to get the sign up in the air
Yeah.
with minimal blocking of views and
Down below.
things like that. So personally, I'm fine with a pole.
I'm fine too. I don't think it's just a single pole. I think it has shrouds and different
Well, again,
Yeah,
that's
so-
purely to get it up as high as it is, engineering wise. It's like a flagpole. They start bigger at the bottom
Well,
and,
yeah, but if you look at the Kia there, I think that's a little different, isn't it?
well, I'm sure it's bigger at the bottom than it is at the
Yeah,
top,
I'm sure it is, but
Yeah.
it does appear that it's almost got a shroud almost on it, but maybe it's deceiving from the.
Yeah, the only one I've seen is the one in South Jordan. I think that one's a little bit of
Yeah.
a bad example, but it's
Yeah, I'm fine.
Looks
with
like
it.
they've beefed up the engineering a little bit, cause that's
Yeah.
only got one change in it,
Yeah,
unless it's tapered.
And you're
I'm fine
good
with
with
it.
it? Okay. Well, it sounds like, and I'm okay with it. That was just a question. So,
I think Dave and I can work that out and see if there's any room on that.
I do have a
Okay.
picture of it, I can pass my.
Yeah,
phone
like,
to you.
our computer doesn't have a picture software, so I can't download it.
okay,
I'm ready to make a motion.
let's go ahead.
I move to recommend to the city council approval of ordinance 2023-12-0 as presented.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous.
Thank you.
And you can work with Mike Florence on any new information you have on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Can you
much.
just give us an update what's your thought as far as opening?
We're hoping to be open by May.
Okay.
We're kicking into high gear now. The walls have started to go up this week, and floors should be poured, and, yeah.
It's really interesting to watch the progress.
Yeah, it's been slower at times than I've never been through the process myself, but, yeah, some spots of it have been very slow, but now it's, I think, kind of going faster, so we're
Getting
excited about it.
exciting, huh?
Yeah, very exciting.
Well, thank you for being here and
Thank you.
coming to Lindon.
The city's been great. We've been really appreciated the city's support and involvement so far. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is another public hearing. And so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and this is a public hearing for a zone map amendment. Our applicant is Mark Weldon. Our presenting staff is Mary Barnes. And is there someone here representing Mark Weldon?
Good evening.
Okay, and
I'm,
if you'd give your names?
I'm Robert Pignon, architect from Salt Lake
Okay.
City, from MHT and Architects.
Okay,
I'm Lauren Weldon,
okay,
work for his property management.
okay. And sir?
Assumption here with Weldon Properties as counsel.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
right.
Mary?
I'll take it away, thank you. So yes, this item addresses a zone map amendment application by Mark Weldon for the property found at 625 North, 2800 West. The applicant is asking to change this property from CGA8, which can be seen in the orange there, that's commercial general A8 zone, to a mixed commercial MC zone, which can be seen in the lighter, like maybe medium pink. The reason behind this zone change request is that the applicant wants to build a new office warehouse. See if I can show you that. Here you go. That would look, and it would also be similar to the one right to the north. So there's one right to the north. Here. So that one right to the north is called Mountain Tech North 3, and if this zone change was approved and this proposed building was also approved, the proposed building would be called Mountain Tech North 4, just for reference as I go through the presentation. And an MC zone change would allow for this use. Currently, the commercial general zone does not allow office warehouse. In 2017, the Mountain Tech North 3 property, this north property from the subject property, was rezoned to mixed commercial from CGA8 for the current flex office warehouse use. And the property in question, 625 North, was approved with 2 retail buildings. Let me pull up that site plan real quick. Not that one, here it is. Here are those 2 retail buildings. Here and here. They're both 4,800 square feet. At the time, the Planning Commission and City Council did extensively discuss the importance of commercial on this subject property with its proximity to I-15. The site plan was stamped and approved by engineers. The proposed building 1, or Mountain Tech North 3, was built, but the 2 retail buildings were never built. Recently, the applicant has approached the city and stated that retail would never work in this area due to a few factors. Let me pull up Google Maps for this. So here's the property. That's Mountain Tech North 3. The factors that he brought up was the existing retail center over here across the highway in Pleasant Grove, the proximity of the lot to the Timpanogos Special Service District, the sewer plant just down the road, and then current tenants in the surrounding Mountain Tech. These are the Mountain Tech North buildings, and then the Mountain Tech South buildings applicant mentioned that those current tenants are wanting more space to expand, so that's why he would want a new office warehouse building to go on this parcel. And then just to the west of this property, one other thing that the applicant mentioned was American Fork will be permitting office warehouse in this big and vacant parcel. So although this proposal is only a zone change, the applicant, as you have seen in your staff report, did provide a site plan and elevations of the proposed Mountain Tech North 4. So therefore, staff felt it was important to present some of the issues with this proposal, because if this was approved, this is what the applicant would come forward with. So the current preliminary proposal for Mountain Tech North 4 is a 2-story, 58,644 square foot. Oh, it's 1 story? Sorry. It's a 1-story office warehouse building with 4 semi-truck loading bays. Currently, this lot is a 319-stall car park. So the property to the north is technically required to have 218 parking stalls. When it was approved in 2017, it only had 135 parking stalls on that lot. Therefore, part of the approval was that in this plat, let me zoom in, it has a note. That states parking areas on lot 4 to be for the benefit of both lots. Therefore, they would have shared parking, essentially. Come back to here. Therefore, the extra 83 stalls that were required were provided on the subject property. The proposed new building would require currently, according to what staff has been given so far with a warehouse parking ratio, this proposed building would require 117 stalls on top of that 83 stalls for the building to the north. So that's a total of 201 stalls that would be needed on the lot just for basic compliance. With this proposed building and its configuration on the lot, it would only provide 94 stalls on the lot, which would mean technically the building to the north would be out of compliance with parking as well as the proposed building. Possible parking reductions would have to be approved at a possible future site plan approval, But the difficulties with the parking is something that the Planning Commission should keep under consideration with this zone change request. If it does come to a site plan approval, we believe that the applicant will request a reduction in parking. With shared parking, the applicant did mention the buildings just to the east of this. I'll show you on this map. So subject property, this is Mountain Tech North 1 and 2. He mentioned that the parking lot here could be used in a shared parking agreement. Shared parking agreements, according to Lindon City Code, have quite a few requirements that they have to meet, such as proximity to the building, and then a safe and connected pedestrian access way, and also a parking analysis would have to be conducted to see when the peak times of all the uses are, that they wouldn't conflict. Of course, that parking analysis hasn't been provided, and that would come at a later point if this zone change was approved. But it's good to keep in mind. Another aspect to this zone change is the vineyard connector. Here that is. Okay, this road would be an arterial road starting from Vineyard all the way to Lehigh, and it has been in the plans for the county's connectivity, regional connectivity for a while, starting in the earliest environmental study I could find was in 2008. It's intended to carry commuters from the I-15 to Pioneer Crossing, vice versa, more efficiently, while also providing connections to other important areas in the county and in the area. In this specific area we're talking about today, it is the closest section closest corridor, I should say, between the proposed vineyard connector configuration and I-15, which means that in the future, this could be become a very important corridor where a lot of people are commuting right through. Therefore, the development along this corridor is crucial, and ensuring that it's planned well and correctly is something that the city has to maintain and look at. While the segments that run through Lindon are as yet unfunded, they are listed as needed in Phase 1 within the Mountain Land Association of Governments Transplant 50. So this important road will come through Lindon within this area. Therefore, we have to be careful with the uses that we do allow in this area. Along with the general plan, so the designation is flex commercial, which is intended to be an area that provides an attractive setting for a wide range of commercial, retail, wholesale, office, warehouse, and services. So far in this area, it is just office, wholesale, warehouse. So part of upholding the vision of the general plan, which we recently adopted, would be to ensure that there's a way for that range of uses to fit into the area, which includes the commercial, retail, and services. In conclusion, staff believes that this zone change request needs to be treated carefully. In the past, the city was promised retail buildings, but those retail buildings were never built, and it was something that was important to the city then, and we need to decide if that is still something that's important to the city now. When the Vineyard Connector is constructed, this area does have the potential to become an important corridor for Lindon City, and preserving the vision of the general plan we just adopted, we went through a massive process for, is also another important aspect to this zone change. Also in your staff report, we do mention that if there's a possibility at some point to make sure that, you know, if this did happen, we could make sure this southwest, let's see, that would be this corner, the corner that would be facing Vineyard, so the corner that would be the Vineyard Connector, so the corner that would be right here. If that was designed to have a little bit more of a commercial look, maybe there's something a little bit more retail on that corner, then maybe that would work, but that would probably have to be in a future discussion with the applicant. Let's see if I've missed anything. Any questions for me or the applicant?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a little bit about the smell because I live down there. So, but since they got the new equipment at the sewage plant, it has not been a problem. So I'd be surprised, is it still a problem over there? Because where I live, I had them on speed dial anytime my kids couldn't play outside because it was so bad. So it's been years since we've had a problem. So, yeah.
We have tenants right now trying to break their lease because of the smell. It smells quite often, like 3 to 4 times a week, especially in the afternoon when it gets warmer. And it didn't used to smell like 2 years ago. I think it's gotten like a lot worse.
Really?
But the Streamline tenant in West Orem 3, or sorry, Mountain Tech North 3, is one of the ones that is trying to break their lease right now because of the smell. They're saying pregnant women won't come to work because the smell is too bad.
But Karen, you live in that area though.
I do, but I think they can turn, I don't know a lot about it, but they can turn the direction of the smell. And so I think that's what I've understood.
Okay.
So we haven't had a problem in a long time. But they knew every time I called that it was them. They'd come check and they'd say, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Comments
But
from
it is
other-
horrible.
Yeah,
I'll
other
attest to that.
commissioners or questions or? Rob, do you have anything?
Of
or
Of the
you
proposal,
commissioners?
of the stat then?
If you would like to go ahead and provide any additional information, why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll ask questions.
Thank you, Chair Call. I just want to appreciate Mary for her presentation here. It was very comprehensive. What we want for you to consider tonight is that this is a piece of land that plays into the quadrant that WICP has developed. We don't necessarily want to dig too far into the economic impact and benefits that this is going to bring, but I think you've been made aware through this evening's presentation prior to ours that, you know, these are important considerations as we're looking at how land is used and whether it brings in revenue. So that's my only comment there. This is a potential project that's going to help Lindon City continue to grow economically. This part of Lindon, as you come off the freeway, doesn't have the same type of retail draw nor need as what we've seen as you head east. And that is where that focus has really been concentrated. We understand that corner was zoned retail for the intent of trying to bring that vitalization to this side of the freeway. But what we're finding more and more is that this is a destination for warehousing, for office, and in as much as we've got people that are there working, we have provided amenities for them. In the purple section, right down the center by the roundabout, we have a whole bunch of pickleball courts and sports courts that are provided. It is a very pleasant experience. It's important to note, as mentioned, that this is going to become a new thoroughfare from that Vineyard corridor. And while it is 2 intersections in, I think it's going to be important to realize that it's going to take all the corners to really create that invitation of, you know, slow down, get off the freeway, and then come in and whether it's retail gas or food services, that's really where your anchor is going to be. How it is addressed with the smells, that's yet to be determined, and that could be a different conversation. But what we're trying to do here is provide a new opportunity for additional growth by rezoning this to something that is in demand. As mentioned, a lot of the companies that are located in these spaces, including Crumble, are looking for expansion, and rather than finding another place for them to go, this becomes an additional growth potential to keep them, to anchor them, and to give them the type of functions that they need. The application is warehouse office, and it's really a flexible opportunity that we're looking for. 4 docks for trucks, including a surface overhead door. The idea being that we want those type of businesses to find that this is a great place for them to come and locate. The circulation around this has been intentionally developed so that truck traffic is safe. They would come off the freeway and into the east entrance, go around the building and back up over their shoulder. Upon leaving, they would make that same circle and then go out the west entrance down to the intersection. That intersection in of itself is also a concern. but we're trying to provide a safe commercial district that continues to flourish and provides that economic engine for Lindon City. The intentional design, the materials that we've used are very similar to the North Building 3, and just want to note that it isn't just a concrete building. It has a lot of glass, it's very transparent, very welcoming, and it could have a second floor, but in this case, we've designed it to have a high rack clearance height for its flexibility. Other ideas that have been entertained that aren't committed by any tenant is it could be a sports building, it could be a place for volleyball, it could be a place for pickleball or other functions. The intent is to not have any columns down the middle, so it's a free span at approximately 110 feet. So it's really a flex building that would continue to develop that quadrant and provide opportunities for this developer. I do want to make mention that from a parking standpoint, the stalls that are on the east side, buildings 1 and 2, there are sufficient stalls beyond the minimum requirements that would allow us to create that cross-parking agreement. And so we wouldn't necessarily be asking for a reduction, but just to allow us to use that 350-foot travel distance so that we can provide those necessary stalls to accommodate that use. And we would find a way to do that through a parking study. We've got some really good tenants in this part of the project. We are leased. We do find that not all the parking stalls are used, and that's a benefit today. But if in fact someday, if it's full at net capacity, that's something that we would have to address and work diligently to make sure we don't lose tenants. So that is the pitch here to help bring something to light that would work, that is in demand. And at this point, we haven't seen a retail demand, so we haven't followed through in what was agreed to back in 2018. Anything else, Lauren?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, the compelling piece here is the alternatives are not attractive. We've got a proven track record with, this would be number 15, with this flex commercial warehouse concept that has proven to be very successful. And to take this footprint of this area with these buildings, it really provides for a consistent presentation of quality construction with a well-heeled developer that knows what he's doing to create a very strong base of corporate structure that attracts major companies, good jobs, convenient location to get on and off the freeway, and just takes that traffic away from city center and that truck traffic and puts it in the place closest to I-15 and to really create a great asset for generating great tax revenues for the city of Lindon.
Commissioners?
Granted, this is not a high retail area. I think in our minds, we're looking to the future when the Vineyard Corridor comes in, it could become more of a retail quadrant and area. The one thing, this is just an ordinance amendment, not a site plan.
This is, yeah, it's a zone change.
But in as much as you've sort of shown a site plan, one thought is that the one thing I don't like about it, I think it's a really attractive building, no question, but the truck docks are right in the front door. And if they could be flip-flopped or something, or it seems like the aesthetically pleasing areas of the building are between the two buildings. I don't know, just a thought that, you know, in the future, as that Vineyard Corridor connector is built, all they'll see are truck docks from that. But I think you've done a very good job planning. It makes a lot of sense. I don't have a problem with a flex building there.
And I think to your point, that bottom right image, if, you know, we could spend some more time and try to address that so that it doesn't have such a stark
Yeah.
wall facade expression, I think we can continue to work on that.
The upper right, that's the east side, I guess, isn't it?
Yes.
That looks really nice.
And that's where a lot of the attention is as you're
Yeah.
coming down. But like you guys are saying, coming from the Vineyard Corridor,
Yeah.
that could use a little bit more attention.
That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I guess I'm Mike.
Oh, I just, as we're going through this, you know, in the staff report, Mary mentioned this as well, we just want to make sure we're careful with these decisions, you know? That we're not just changing a commercial zone to this mixed commercial zone for flex office. We want to be careful of these, you know? I go back to the Kia dealership. We almost lost the Kia dealership because we changed it to regional commercial over there next to Home Depot for office warehouse. And then it took all the begging and pleading I could do to get those owners to sell the property to Kia. So we almost lost that because we were so quick. We're like, oh, nothing's happened for 15 years over there next to Home Depot. And so we're like, let's change it. We did, and we almost lost on a commercial tenant. So you know, as you think about those, let's just make sure that, hey, you know, we've had this as commercial for a long time. Is this the direction we want to go? And if it is, they'll provide a great product. Mark, as like it was mentioned, provides is probably one of our largest commercial landowners, if not the largest. He brings a great product, but we just need to look at this for future. You know, Vineyard Connector, it could still be 10 years out or longer, who knows? But we want to make sure that we're as we look at our last commercial piece in this area, this interchange, that this is the right decision we're making and recommendation to the city council.
I'm concerned about that too. You know, we have got so much of the same type of the office warehouse type buildings and tenants, and I guess some of my concerns are, of course, was in 2017 we were promised a couple of restaurants. We were promised some retail. If that was changed to mixed the MC zone, and I realize the situation retail is in, but at the same time, what we were promised and what the site plan showed and what we got were two different things. And as far as space to expand, are you saying with all of the buildings that you have there, that your current tenants don't have places they could expand to? Are all of your buildings full?
The warehouse office spaces are full, and so what we're trying to do is provide an option for them to not leave the park by
Right.
having this as first
Right.
rights. So Crumble is the poster child here. They're in building 2. They need warehouse. We don't want to lose them to another city.
Right. And there isn't, within your current buildings, this is number 15, within your current buildings, you don't have another space within those buildings that they could expand to?
So all the spaces are currently leased. In fact, the corporate offices were in one of those, and they got bumped into building 1, level 2, southwest corner to accommodate the tenants. So we are maxed out on the flex warehouse.
As far as right now?
Yes.
Okay. I know that there's not a lot of progress on the Vineyard Connector right now. From everything I understand, that will come. It may not come right away, but it will come. I guess I'm concerned about acting too hastily on rezoning this as far as the last commercial piece that we have in that area. That's my concern. And so I'll let you express yours.
you had mentioned that this property, this parcel here to the west, that's American Fork City, correct?
Uh-huh.
And what do we know about the proposed development that's going in there? I think they're trying to do something similar to your product. Is that what I understood, or what do we know about that?
Zone is planned industrial. That's what it's called. So, and then
But you don't know that
Mr.
something's been presented to the city on that?
I
parcel?
don't,
Oh, okay.
I don't know
didn't
anything on
understand.
that. Just that the zone is planned industrial, and the applicant at our meeting the other day, Mark Weldon, said that it would be like the same, about the same thing. So, that's all I know on American Fork side. But we could find out.
Is this zoning change that we're contemplating, does it preclude a pad site that could include, retail or a
It doesn't,
restaurant or something like that?
it doesn't preclude it. It would just allow them to move forward with what they've presented, well, not what they've presented, but what they've proposed today. It doesn't seem like they are wanting to do any pad sites.
Well, and because we don't know what the future holds, right? But if they felt like the demand was there to develop something like that, and that was a needed product, could they come back to us and
They could come
it would
back.
be a permitted use?
But the likelihood of that happening, from what they've said about their reasons that retail isn't going to work in this area, the likelihood of that happening seems low.
Yeah, if they build this building, there's not room to put a pad.
And I think there's a concern about the type of traffic flow. Retail is much different from semi-truck traffic, and you wouldn't want to compromise that by trying to mix both. So I think that would be, from a safety standpoint, that would be a difficult task.
Does anyone else have questions and this is a public hearing. Are there others here that would, that have public comment? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission for discussion? Have a motion?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. So the discussion is now among the commissioners. So some of you that we haven't heard much from.
If I could just add one thing, I'm not really opposed to this zone change, and I think the building can look really nice with a few tweaks when it comes to that point of a site plan and building plan. With respect to holding on to the last piece for a commercial development, you need, for commercial to be successful, you've got to have mass. And I'm not sure saving one parcel for commercial is gonna work. I'm not sure one commercial restaurant there or two could survive without more of a mass than that. So I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't have a problem with the change.
I think everybody probably knows where I stand, but I don't have a problem with the multi-purpose flex space property, especially down there where we've already let it loose. My biggest concern in the next 10 years is that UDOT will end up taking the building right back out because the road could get bigger instead of smaller, and there might be a condemnation happened even to make things work. Those guys supposed to be forward-thinking, they sure seem to be behind the times for getting the proper infrastructure in place as far as I'm concerned, so. But I'm like, Rob, one more parcel is, especially down there, that it's the mass that has been starting to bring some commercial into the areas that really justify it. Without the flex buildings we have, we'd be still further way out for seeing any commercial development. It's that type of stuff that brings people to work. We don't help a lot on rooftops, And so this has been the best kind of stuff we've done to make Lindon Village ever a possibility. It's just bodies and people going to work and those needs. Again, in the smaller picture, just one more little parcel wouldn't hurt my feelings if it went flex.
I've debated back and forth. I agree, it just seems kind of strange to put the commercial just kind of in an island. You know, you usually don't see that, or those are the ones that don't survive. Yeah, you know, when they're in an island by themselves. You know, I always, though, lead to upholding them to the promises they had before, but time changes. I mean, I don't have a problem with the flex space. I'm like with Rob, I think if they work on the building a little bit, especially the presentation from that side that will become very visible. Currently it's the back, but it will become the front, which we're not here to debate that right now. I'm inclined to recommend it to the city council to let them debate it a little bit more, but that's where, you know, I would worry that even holding them to their promise there and having them put a couple restaurants or something there that would just be constant turnover because of there's not the mass there. That's just kind of my feel with it being isolated.
Okay, Jared?
Well, I think there could be some other tenants in a building like that other than people going to work. I mean, we have the trampoline park in one of those buildings on the east side. You know, there could be some family fun centers, there could be some entertainment venues, that kind of thing in that type of space, which would be fun to see, you know, to give Lindon residents and others in the surrounding community some things to do, places for kids to hang out. I mean, so I see that kind of commercial building being used in those ways, and I think that could be exciting for our community. So I'm very positive on this zone change.
Hey, Karen?
Oh, I'm still torn. No, I agree though that I think retail would be very difficult over there. But we do have a lot of warehouses by us. So, but it's not really that close to us, so I think I'd be more inclined to it, but.
I do want to bring one more item up with design standards. So the architect has done a great job on taking our mixed commercial zone and providing a really nice building. However, this building that he's provided already exceeds, I think, I haven't done a full review, so I wanted that caveat out there, that I think it exceeds our mixed commercial zone. So I just want to make sure, Rob, that I can't ask probably for anything more. And so when this comes for site plan approval, this is probably meets our standard. Again, I want to throw that caveat out there that I haven't done a full review because we're not doing site plan approval here. But you know, there's probably not a whole lot more myself or the planning commission could ask for. But again, I want to be careful saying that because I haven't done a review.
Your
regional commercial
That's
zone
okay.
requires, you know, a little bit more like with the office buildings and the other buildings that have been built, but.
Okay, I'll allow the comment, but we have closed the public hearing, so.
Understood, I was waiting for your invitation. We would be happy to address that corner.
Okay. Well, are we ready for a motion then? Would one of you like to make a motion?
You know, one thing, I know he's not here, but did Scott sent an email, Commissioner Thompson. I don't know if we addressed his issues or thought about those. I don't know if that's necessary, but.
You know what, I didn't see.
I read him. He was, yeah, he was not objectionable.
Okay, I didn't get it, so I don't know what he said, so.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
I would like to move to recommend approval of ordinance 2023-15-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map from commercial general A8, CG-A8 to mixed commercial at this address, 625 North, 2800 West. I assume that address is correct. And then the parcel number.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And I've already stated the reasons, my concerns. Okay. So the motion carries. Okay, and that is a recommendation to the council, and so that will still have to go to the council. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is another public hearing. And so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. This is item number 7. It's an ordinance amendment, 1748.025 Lindon Village Zone. And our applicant is Michael, is it Cootley? And our presenting staff is Michael Florence.
Recorder will need a copy. So,
We have all these in our report.
all right, well, Commissioners, thank you. So Mr. Cootley has made an application on behalf of the property owners on the north side of 700 North to request an ordinance amendment to amend the Lindon Village Zone to have residential as a permitted use in the Lindon Village Zone. Couple things I wanted to go through with you, and I'll let Mr. Cootley go through his proposal up here, which he's also handed out to you. But Lindon City adopted the 700 North Master Plan, or Small Area Plan, April 5th, 2021. Couple sheets out of that plan. Just want you to consider as you think about this request this evening. The vision for that corridor is envisioned as a gateway to Lindon City and fosters unique experiences for the community together. High design standards will preserve and enhance the quality of the city. The site will be developed with community spaces, retail, restaurants, employment center, services, and other experiential attractions to create an environment for a live, work, play community. Through the support of bus rapid transit and future mobility options, the site will be a destination center and a center for the city to grow and develop by creating a thriving, walkable community that enhances the lifestyle of all Lindon residents in the present and future. So that's the vision for that 700 North corridor. I also include in your staff report the project goals for the small area plan. There's goals regarding the corridor as a gateway, support for future transit, creating a walkable town center, and supporting economic development down there, primarily with commercial businesses. That number 1, establish a core for retail employment centers, hospitality, restaurants, grocery, entertainment, and overall daily needs and services. As we put the 700 North small area plan together, it was developed with 3 districts. The outer districts is the flexible development, so meaning that various types of commercial development is a primary choice there. Then you have a TOD core, so transit-oriented development. So looking at businesses and uses that focus on that future bus rapid transit station. So bus rapid transit is proposed to go from Lehigh to the University Mall in Orem, and so it would come down this corridor, and then the town center district. And so the proposal before you is, again, is to allow residential as a permitted use. You know, I think every proposal we receive recently has some type of residential use, and, you know, feedback from the council is that, you know, they're aware that they're going to receive a commercial proposal, or sorry, a residential proposal, but the focus is commercial down there. And they've been very consistent with that. And so with that, I'll turn the time back to the commission, and I think Mr. Cootley has a presentation as well.
Okay, we'll go ahead and listen to your presentation, and then we'll ask questions from there.
Alrighty, well, first off, everybody has a copy of that. Mike's just put it up on the screen, and I emailed him.
Yeah, I think we got those in our staff
Now,
report too.
did you have a chance to read my opening remarks already? I mean, I just handed this out, but I didn't know if Mike had sent that. Okay, now this is not the end-all design for the location. It's just more of just an option of something that the sellers were saying, hey, you know, why don't we present this? Let's see if we can get some traction. We are trying to build what Carolyn and what the city council would love to see is a walkable downtown style community. And over a number of conversations with, you know, Mike and Carolyn and a number of other of the city council members, if you're trying to build an old school type downtown, you have retail on the main levels, and then of course you have office and or residential above it to create some height, to create more of a downtown walkable style feel. All the old school downtowns are that way. I make a remark in here that we're kind of coming full circle, going away from where we were in the early 50s to the old school downtowns, and then of course cars became more of a thing where families had 2 cars, and then there wasn't enough parking in the old downtowns, so they moved to the suburbs and had plazas that had big, huge parking lots. Now we've come full circle and we want to go back to that warm, fuzzy downtown feel again. So we have some challenges as far as parking and things like that we've got to work with, but if we're going to try to build a center like that, like in the previous drawing of that town center, we need some way to get people there, okay? Every developer that we've talked to, everybody that's come to the table, you know, even the 3 that I'm currently trying to get some traction with for the site, every single one of them are saying mixed use, mixed use, mixed use. It's not an unheard concept. I mean, we just watched downtown Provo go through the same scenario, dying on the vine. Everybody knew what was happening to Provo around the turn of the century and then in the last 10 years. They've added, according to my contact there, I talked to Bill, they've added 1,100 units just in downtown Provo. He says that's not counting what they've done along State Street, and it also doesn't count what is going to currently being built where the old city hall was. He said some of these are still in the building stage. Some got a little bit slow walked because of the high interest rates, but he goes, we did 1,100 units down there, and I think everybody that's visited downtown Provo within the last year can see a complete change, complete turnaround. I've gone down there numerous times. I have never had a problem finding a parking spot. Now granted, I go out a little bit earlier because I'm not, you know, a young kid. I'm not in my 20s anymore. But I think some of the reason we don't see the parking problems is because most of the people that are experiencing downtown Provo live there. They come out of their buildings, they walk up and down the street, they go to the restaurants, they go to the shops, whatever. If they're going to leave the area, they leave the area. But if they're going to, you know, patronize any of those businesses that are there, they walk to them. That's what I'm trying to do with this site here. I want to build what you guys have been wanting for years. University Place, Bob has firsthand experience with that. Bob was a big part of the mixed use thing that came into University Place. The count that I had from all the different apartment buildings, which I'm not advocating apartment buildings, I know I don't want them, and a couple of the developers that I've talked to want to do apartments only. So I'm kind of, you know, trying to either convince them to do some for sale units and some for some rental units. But the number I got from between the Devon, the Exeter, the Aston, and the Monteval, 809 units is what they did. And of course, if you look at the last page of this handout, that's a map of what you find online for University Place. It incorporates all of those in their map for the redevelopment of that site. Now, why would the University Mall do that? Because they were struggling too, and I'm sure Bob can definitely attest to this. They were struggling keeping storefronts full. We've been having trouble with retail for years because most people, or a lot of people, are going to online purchases. We're not getting the people into the stores. I went to a concert at that little park down there. I did some video, which I didn't bring up here, but lots of people around, lots and lots of activity. And every single time we drive through there, because I go to the Wingnuts and the Cinemark that's right over there quite a bit, there's always a ton of people walking through there. So it's a really busy place again, which is great. And that's what we're trying to bring to this site. If you look at a couple of the ideas of what we've looked at for some townhouses, because we'd like to do some townhouse stuff in there, or at least present the ability to developers to do townhouses in there. But also some of the type buildings where you've got, in this early traditional, this is from Europe, it's I can't remember what city this is, but there's retail on the bottom level of that, as well as this one. This one's really easy to see it. And of course, these are old school, traditional style looking buildings, which is, I know, what seemed to be the hot button for a lot of the city council members. They don't want the craftsman, they don't want the modern. We want to stay with something that's a little bit more of the old style, something that's a little bit different from everything else that you see out there. And the next page is obviously an example of what we see everywhere else. This is one of the groups that I've been talking to for about a month now. Currently, they've told me no. They didn't like the idea of the rents being not where they want them to be, and they were kind of back and forth on fighting the good fight with the city because it's not zoned that way. So it's kind of been the story of my life for about the last year or so. But ultimately, you know, and the owners of the property have told me numerous times, Mike, we need to get this, we need to get it sold. We also want to do what the city wants, and we want to be able to drive by and say that's something we had a big part of. And I think a big part of it is coming to some determination, and I know Mike makes a remark in the staff report that it takes away the ability for the city to regulate the number of homes in there, but I've never seen a zoning that allowed a builder to just build carte blanche and build 1,000 units someplace without going through the city and saying, can we do this? Maybe something along the lines of 12 homes, you know, 12 units per acre, you know, and of course that would account to maybe on the 24 acres that we have, 288 units. Now, they wouldn't be on every single acre because that doesn't work. And I would like to see more of a design that's kind of like the retail on the bottom with the residential on top. Maybe not so much that one as much as I think something along the lines of that would be much more acceptable to, I think, some of the, you know, things that I've been told by Carolyn and some of the city council members of what they would like to see. But something that's going to bring people to the site, something that's going to help us appeal to some of the developers that we want there. Because we don't want, there's certain developers we don't want. And I've been, you know, contacted by a number of those, and I've talked to a number of them, and I've kind of said, no, what you guys have is just not going to work for us. I want to do what you guys would like to see, because I think that's a great idea. We don't have that. Look at what's going on in Pleasant Grove just up the street. St. John's is a great developer, don't get me wrong. But every single thing that they've done up there that's retail is single story. Okay, you got single story, the Starbucks, the the Jersey Mike's, all their little office buildings, all along Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Everything in there is single story. Is that warm and fuzzy and walkable? No, you're gonna park your car, you're gonna walk in, get your Starbucks, or go through the driveway, get your Starbucks, you're gonna walk into a Jersey Mike's, get your sandwich, you're gonna eat and leave. You're not spending any time there. This is gonna create something that's gonna have people walking around, restaurants, some shops, some boutique shops, something that's gonna, you know, make them spend a few hours there on a Friday or Saturday night, or as we see everywhere else in this valley right now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, you can't hardly go to a restaurant anywhere around here any night of the week and not have at least some kind of wait. Most of them have, and we don't have nearly enough restaurants around here. I would like to see a lot more restaurants here. But it's something that I need some kind of, I think a density would be a good way to regulate it. Something that's going to give us something that we can go to a number of developers that have a good reputation for doing homes that would be a little bit for rent and a little bit for sale, to bring in some people to try out Lindon, to see that they liked living here, and then buy in Lindon. We don't have that right now. Mike, you made a comment, we don't have a lot of rooftops on the, you know, in the last. We don't, especially in this area. We've got a lot of homes that are just south of this, that border the freeway. We've got a bunch of townhouses down there that kind of, we got sold a little bit of a bill of goods on that are all for rent. None of those have ever sold that I've been able to find. They're all a rental product. And I know that that's part of that particular company's business model for right now. When the market crashed in '07 and '08, they were quoted as saying, we're not gonna get caught with this again. We're gonna build up huge inventory of apartments. And that's what they've done. They've done a ton of that. They've built a lot of homes as well. But, you know, that's part of their business model. And again, that's all along the freeway. It's tough to get to as far as commercial. Tesla did the same thing. I still don't agree with their choice to go away from our site to go over there, but hey, they did. This would be a really, especially with the design that we have with the TOD and the city center, we need something that's going to help us attract a noteworthy developer to it. And I think we could do that if we could get some kind of permitted, I don't know if we're doing the right thing on that, Mike, you know, permitted use, conditional use, how do we make that work so that the city still feels like they've got, well, not even feels like it's, that they still have the control over the number of units that go in there. Obviously, the design of how those units go in there. And then, of course, you know, everything's gotta be it has to go through city council and planning and DRC and all that anyways. So we're gonna have the end all coming from the city as far as what's going to look good to you. How do we make that happen for this site?
I mean, that's a couple different options. It's creating a different zoning ordinance than what we created this evening for this one. It's being more specific, maybe creating some districts down there, saying what's allowed in each district, what the density is.
I don't want to put all the homes in one spot
But
and
that's,
all the retail in another, because that kind of creates a situation that none of us want. We sell that to a residential builder, which I have $1 million I could sell it to, dead serious. I could walk out the store and sell this site to 10 retail or residential builders tomorrow if we had residential on it. Don't want that. That's the reason I'm not a big fan of our design, because it's all residential along the back and all retail along the front. You know, you could get a guy to build all the residential, but when will the retail get there? I like the idea of the residential on top of some of the retail. Some townhouses in there to give us a mix and give us a little bit more of the high-end feel. We had a developer that was planning on doing some brownstones back there, and I feel that that got a lot of attention because a lot of people liked that. It was appealing to a number of the people on city council. And I like that idea. I think a nice upscale type townhouse would really work. Now exactly along the back, I don't know if that's the best location for them right now with all the mixed use and some of the industrial and MD zone that we do have on the other side. Been trying to find a user for that 1 acre on that one site all the way to the east. That's why you see this one lot here on the east that goes front to back, because on the other side of that fence is a transfer station.
Okay.
I'm trying to stay away from that with residential, any kind of residential, whether it be stacked flats or it be townhouses, anything. I want to get something in there that's big and tall and blocks that view.
Okay.
You know, it'd be a nice bookend too.
I think what we'll do now is to open this up for questions from the commissioners. And I know we have a comment from the public. We'll allow you to make that, but let's let the commission ask the representative questions, and then we'll open up for the public.
I just had a question.
Okay,
I was
okay.
just wondering, the development in Orem above True Religion
Yes,
that took so
Midtown
long
Plaza.
to get off the ground, I think that is a fascinating concept, and I was just wondering what the occupancy rate is, if that is, how successful that is now. I know it got off to a terrible start.
It was a horrible,
Yeah,
litigious
big
mess in
lead and
there.
everything.
Well, what they did in there, just so you have a little bit of
Okay,
understanding.
can you address your comments to us,
Sure.
please?
What they did in there, to answer her question, is it was a bunch of straw buyers. Some of those units in there had been sold 2 and 3 times. And then when the market crashed, the last buyer canceled the contract, so the second buyer canceled, and of course, the first buyer never had any intention whatsoever of living there. They were just buying it as an investment. Everything in there was straw, so when the bottom fell out, all of that just collapsed. And then, of course, there was some expenditures because they got a good deal on all the steel for the first building, and they built the second deal, so they extended themselves out way too far, and then, of course, they had no ability to keep it afloat.
What's
You
the
know, so
occupancy rate though? Right
From what I
now?
have been told, we're like 98% in there.
Okay.
I
No,
think that's a neat concept myself, just,
I hate their parking,
yeah.
but,
Okay.
you know,
Let's let the commission ask questions. I'm sure some of you have questions for Mr. Cootley.
I don't know if I have questions so much as that maybe just a comment, and I'm directing this to me too. You know, going on an evening with your spouse or partner or whatever to some of these areas that are being developed in this way, and doing some homework. And, you know, I found myself at the university place last Friday or Friday before. I never go there, but I was there with my daughter, and there was a lot of stuff. No, I'm just saying, there was a lot of stuff going on there that night.
River
and
bottoms.
there was actually a lot of people there.
I didn't bring up river bottoms, but there's another.
The river bottoms, I was there with my wife to one of the restaurants, and it's kind of dead for some reason. I mean,
What
retail-
night were you there?
This was a Saturday at about 5 o'clock.
Oh, you're old like me.
I don't know what the issue is with the river bottoms.
We've been there, we don't go there a lot, but we've been there recently, and over the winter, I mean, it seemed to be completely different with all those condos that were built just south of there, but it was pretty hopping.
My point is there are other developments along the Wasatch Front that the city council, the planning and zoning committee, staff perhaps as well, maybe we need to go visit, do some reconnaissance work. And we might come to the conclusion that having the residential is not so scary after all, I guess is my point. I think there's probably some right ways to do it, some wrong ways to do it. Rob, your group's probably figured out, you know, made some mistakes maybe, or done some really great things and have learned from that. I mean, I just think we're kind of maybe artificially scared of some of this housing in that area on 700 North. And I'm directing that comment to myself as well, but I think there's a classy way to have some residential in there. And I think that's basically what your point you're trying to make tonight, is to not be scared of some residential.
Well, look at all of the
Big
old
stand with
downtowns. And I grew up in an old downtown that was built in the late early 1800s. And there's 2, 3, 4, and 5-story buildings in that downtown. All old. I mean, I showed a picture to Carolyn one time when we were having lunch. And she's like, wow, that's exactly what I want. I says, look, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5-story buildings here. And of course, back in those days, you lived and worked right exact. I mean, my aunt had a shop in Watkins Glen. She lived above the shop. She had a house on the lake 30 miles away, but she lived above the shop and worked there. And then, of course, on the weekends, she would go spend time at the other house until she let my grandparents live there. But, I mean, that's how we did it back in those days. And people, you know, I was, and you're a real estate agent as well. This younger clientele loves these 3-story tall townhouses. You know, I'm thinking, no way, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of stairs.
But they like that. They like the fact that they live above where they can go play. They don't have anywhere to go, you know, and they don't have to get in their car and drive someplace, and that's getting to be more of a hassle around here now. You know, anywhere you go, it's, I mean, for crying out loud, we went to, where the heck did we go? We went to, Black Bear or somewhere the other day, and University Parkway is just buried alive. You know, I mean, you can't go in either direction without waiting 2 or 3 lights most of the time.
I think that my personal feeling is that I don't think the city has ever said that we won't allow some residential in that area. I don't think, we know that that will come with this. I think the opposition I have with this is that it will remove the city's ability, this ordinance change will remove the city's ability to regulate the number.
There's never been a zoning that I've ever seen that allows a builder to build an unlimited amount of homes.
And both sides, both the north and the south side, with this zone change could be completely residential.
No, it couldn't.
So-
You guys would not let that
I
happen.
think so, with this zone change.
So
you might-
your request was to allow residential as a permitted use.
Yes,
And
but
so-
not carte blanche, not like,
Okay,
hey,
but that's not,
But-
that's not our intention.
Okay,
No.
that-
It may not be your intention, but if we allow that just as a permitted use without a plan for
Okay, fine.
commercial,
But then what,
that could happen.
like I posed to Mike, what would allow us as a group to develop some plan that works for the city, would be appealing to a developer as well, and control the number of homes in there? And we're not even really talking we're not doing single-family homes. That doesn't work for the plan that we want.
Right.
It doesn't bring the feel to the area that we want. We want something that's gonna be like an old-school type downtown. That's what Lindon's wanted forever, from the
Right.
things that I've been told.
But by allowing the residential first before we have a plan for the commercial, I'm just not willing to do that.
Okay, but
I'm not
if,
sure how you could allow the residential, it's something like this, I mean, you've gotta build it simultaneously.
exactly.
So your zone, so the ordinance I wrote according to the applicant was he wanted residential as a permitted use, so that's how I wrote it. If we want something different, then we need to go back and look at what was written, table it tonight, and let's go back and look at a different option. But the application that was received and the direction I received was to put residential as a permitted use. Permitted use in the Lindon Village zone would allow residential for everything. And so if
I'm not
he
willing to
wants
do
to
that.
do something
No, I'm
different,
not willing to do that either. I don't want to do that.
Mike,
then
why are we here?
Because we wrote it the wrong way, probably. I asked Mike what he thought worked the
no,
Okay,
right
you're
here,
right.
I pulled up the email.
me,
The
let
seller
Mike go
has
ahead.
mentioned having it as a permitted use. So
Right,
that's what I
Because
wrote.
the seller asked for that, and me and Mike batted this back and forth for a lack of trying to, but we went with what the seller was asking. What we want to do is come up with some kind of zoning, conditional, whatever you want to call it as a city.
So I
and
think
maybe
you need
what
to
you're
have a
wanting to
plan.
come up with
I
is-
think the commission needs to have a plan that it's comfortable with. So this has been mentioned multiple times, this isn't what we're going to do. So what we've said consistently is come up with a plan that you want to do. Let's write a zoning ordinance for that and make sure the council and planning commission are good with it.
but the way this is written now, I'm not
turns us
okay with
into
Let's
that.
table it. Let's
This
table
sort of
it
turns us into the
until,
developer, right? I mean, I can't.
Well,
we
if I
can't-
can make a comment,
please.
you compared this to University Place, and of course, I'm there. We studied that for many years. The difference is, we were the owner of the property, we were the developer of the property, we were gonna own it after it was developed. we took our plan to the city and said, this is what we want to do. Can we write a zone for this, you know, this whole mixed-use project? And we did that. What you're saying is, let's just change the ordinance and see what it happens.
No.
Well, you are.
I am not wanting that. I don't want
What-
that.
Well, that's
What
what
I
you're.
want is some kind of ordinance that allows a certain amount of residential
Bring
there.
it, bring a development.
Under, I can't get a developer to even talk to me.
Why?
Because
Most,
we've run all
most experienced developers have an idea and the project, and they know that they're probably gonna have to go to a piece of property that may not be zoned that way. But they'll take the plan to the city and show it to them, and then simultaneously change the ordinance to accommodate that
which we've
development.
discussed in the past too.
But
Mike's
just to
told me no.
change the ordinance and the zoning is a slippery slope. You may not, but now 5 other people are gonna come in and say, hey, you're giving us permission now to do residential. Here's a 300-unit development. You know, if you look at the project, there's a walkable area that we've identified. The whole thing's not gonna be a walkable area.
No.
It's too big.
In fact, I'm trying to figure out some way to incorporate both the north side and some of the south side to create that big square
Yeah.
block of a downtown
Yeah.
that works.
But what you've shown here, just through my experience, is you've shown projects that have a lot of residential and small little retail. Now, you're not gonna get Sephora or H&M or Lululemon. They're not gonna go in those. It's gonna be small mom and pop operators. They're, you know, a furniture store, a specialty furniture store, or something like that. And so, well, I think, correct me if we're all wrong, everybody, but I think what we thought is we wanted a walkable area like this, but then the rest of the area would be a more commercial development with larger boxes. I'm not talking about Walmarts or things like that. But in my mind, I just can't see changing the zone to just hope that something comes down the
No.
pike.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
I think that was well said, Rob. But would it be safe to encourage him to say to developers that are interested, that there are a number of people on the city council and the planning and zoning that would be amenable to a residential component? I mean,
Yes.
Well,
I would be, but
We
like you
know
say,
we're
we
gonna
need to see
get
the plan.
that.
What's that?
we know we're gonna have some residential.
Yeah,
component.
So can we come up with a number, you know, as a density, some kind of example?
Oh, why should we?
I don't think we can just throw that out to you.
Too early to do that.
I don't think we can do that at all. Not without seeing,
I think sometimes what happens too, I'll take, you know, maybe it's still the burr under my saddle, the development happening behind us, the residential looks great, still don't have a commercial building, right? Even though it
right,
was promised and that's what was supposed to happen and it was supposed to be tied to the development. So we set a density and now all of a sudden,
there's no.
the property was sold and there's other things that happened and an ordinance was changed so that they could get going because they had to get going. And I just think once you start down that slope of saying you can do this, then someone's gonna design for that part and move forward where we want a whole development. So I think it's really hard to put. I mean, I'd hate to say our development, our number is 1 or 2% off one way or the other that would make the development work. Or, you know, we're 10. I think it's really hard until we see something. How tall is it?
Well, what I hear Rob saying, and I totally understand where he's coming from, is we're hoping, and I'm sure you'd love it too, to have a master developer come that's got the wherewithal to take the bull by the horns and do it like a Woodbury project.
Well, even if it's just a portion.
But yeah, right.
You know.
But really had the vision and I know you'd love that too, but you haven't found one yet that you know, you know, but as these rooftops keep coming, I'm hoping Cause you've worked your tail off on that piece down there, trying to get something to, it's been a while.
6.5 years.
You know, and to get something to happen, and you probably know, I'm not daily in the brokerage side of the real estate market anymore, but did PG just approve 1,100 units on the PG back?
And it's right close to where this is.
And we don't want that.
I mean, that's gotta help, doesn't that gotta help us?
It hasn't made my phone ring one time.
Hasn't it?
I have called every developer and everybody has told me I don't wanna even look at that piece.
Well,
And I don't think it's so much something that we've done as a city. I think it's some of the things that have happened around there and some of the, you know, these guys it's a small community in the development side. It really is. And I was really, really hoping we approved, you know, obviously we had lots 1, 2, and 3 sold. We closed on lot 2, NEM, and they have still failed to break ground. Unfortunately, Training Room had to back out of their deal. They couldn't make the numbers work after the interest rates went up. I don't know if we're gonna see Everlight's close on lot number 3.
that's our point.
But nothing has gone vertical, so my hope, and you know, I was here, you know,
Yeah.
pleading, you know, just to get something to break ground in there so I could change the bad juju that's going on in there, and
Well,
and nothing's
I don't
happening.
wanna be in that position where we just gotta get something and break ground.
Something
what's the
breaking ground
hurry?
shows that,
I don't
hey,
see
you know,
it.
we can do something on this site, and the remarks I'm getting from developers, I don't wanna fight the White House, I don't wanna fight the White House. And that's what I hear consistently from every developer out there.
Yeah, I
You know,
can
or they
understand
wanna
that,
do apartments, and I'm, you know what?
Exactly.
That's nice, but
Not gonna
no,
happen.
that's not what we want on this site, we don't want apartments.
We're already gonna have apartments.
Well,
surrounding.
as far as,
And I've got your back on that too. I mean, I'm kind of like the gatekeeper. Now, granted, I could let somebody run with that, but is it gonna be successful? No, so I don't wanna waste the seller's time on it either, and that's the reason why we are trying to run with some kind of developmental plan, because we're tired of seeing guys come in and say, hey, we're gonna do this, or we're gonna do this, and it looks great. And then all of a sudden, it goes on paper, and it's like nothing what they said they were gonna do, you know? And we've had that happen on other sites.
Well, you've experienced this, that's what we have to protect ourselves against. If we just
Well, you're not
carte
gonna
blanche
approve it.
change the zoning, that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna be sitting here and people are gonna keep bringing things in that,
and we can't say no
and we
to.
can't say no. So, have we come back, have we closed the public hearing? for
No,
those?
we haven't, and that's what I was gonna say. Are there others, do you have any more comments from the public? Others that would like to make comment? I think we should go ahead and close the public hearing, bring the discussion back up to the
I
commission.
move to close the public hearing.
Okay, I
I
have a
second
motion,
that
do I have a
motion.
second? Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the
My
voting
comment
is
would be, I
unanimous.
think, Mike, we're not that far off. We're
I
on the
don't think
same
so either.
page.
I don't feel
But
any
I
other-
just don't think we have an appetite for just changing the ordinance right now without something.
Mike, what's a suggestion that you may have for us to kind of breach that discussion and try to find a way to
I think you,
make both
I
sides
think it's
feel
been said here, I think you gotta work with the developer and have them put something on paper and let's
Bring it in.
bring it before the planning commission council with a ordinance amendment at that time that we've worked on.
And so my proposal or my motion is let's table this.
Do you want to continue it or deny
Not
it?
continue it. I don't think we're,
Just deny it.
just
Well, let's
deny it.
deny it, yeah, as far as
Well, I make a
the way
motion
it's
to
written right
deny
now.
this zoning change, but, you know, bring a developer.
I'll do what I can.
Okay.
I'll do what I can.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So,
I think your concept's good and what, for
If I
not
could
the whole
just get someone to
thing.
pull the trigger, it'd be fantastic.
Were you, let's see, were we talking about the whole north side?
No, this was
That
24
color.
acres
Okay.
Yeah, that colored in
Yeah.
there.
from the east end
Yeah,
to just past where the Andersonville
Yeah.
part comes in.
But the ordinance change
Right.
would affect both sides.
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to residential, I just don't want more apartments though. Or
Yeah.
rented spaces. We'll have so much down there.
Thanks.
So it wasn't supposed to be that way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have another item on the agenda. This is a public hearing again.
That's kind of what,
So I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, this is item number 8. It's an ordinance amendment, 1704-420, portable storage containers. Our applicant is Lindon City. Our presenting staff is Michael Florence.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. I brought this to you a month or two ago, just as a discussion item to get some feedback on. We've made a couple minor tweaks to it, but just wanted to go through this requirement, or this proposed ordinance. It would be coming up with a definition in 1702 of a portable storage container, and then some general requirements for different zones. And so the definition that's proposed is: portable storage container means a container fabricated for the purpose of transporting freight or goods on a truck, railroad, or ship, including cargo containers, intermodal ship containers, storage units. We added semi-truck trailers, I think Scott brought that up last time, or other portable structures that are placed on private property and used for storage and shipment of materials and merchandise. And so I broke down the requirements into general requirements, residential, agricultural, and commercial. So just general requirements: permanent placement of containers must meet setback requirements and not located in the front yard area. So for a residential setback is, for an accessory building, is 5 feet. In commercial and industrial zones, there's not a setback requirement if you meet building code, meaning that you've got the appropriate firewall in place. Not used for anything other than in the intended storage purposes, so no residential, no camping, cooking, etc. A building permit is required for permanent containers over 120 square feet, and that will be on the property longer than 180 days. For construction or remodeling, the temporary container can be on site for 1 year, but must be removed within 10 days of final inspections. Temporary containers are allowed to be used on property for 180 days for emergency situations such as a flood or a fire, and then as for moving as well. No vertical stacking, no containers on vacant lots or parcels, and cannot be used for retaining walls. And then we go into residential, agriculture, and commercial requirements. So 1 container per residential lot or parcel. The container either needs to be clad in a material that's similar to the single-family home or painted to cover up the numbering or advertising. Agricultural allows 2 storage containers for an agricultural property that is under green belt. So there's some state and county requirements for that. That's got to have a minimum acreage and agricultural production going on. And then commercial, they're allowed for shipping and receiving for up to 180 days. That 180 days is kind of the determining whether it's permanent or temporary. And then temporary containers cannot be stored in circulation lanes, fire lanes, easements, or rights of way. They could be stored in a parking area when shipping and receiving merchandise, but cannot affect the overall parking. So for example, Walmart or Home Depot, they're getting ready for Christmas. And so, they have containers, they need to store them in the parking areas. This would be allowed for that. So that's a summary of the code. The couple building code requirements that, as the building official, as he gets a container in that they want to make it permanent, some general requirements are, how's it going to be anchored to the ground? If the data plate on there will tell you some information about the container as well, tell you the manufacturer, how it was put together, And then your foundation, it could be a gravel foundation, it could be a concrete foundation. There's ways to tie it or anchor it to the ground with both of those options. And so it's not overly burdensome on a homeowner to get a building permit for one of these and anchor it to the ground. Anchoring could be as much as using a chain to anchor it to the ground with an anchor into some concrete with it used a chain or something like that. It's not overly burdensome, in that respect. We provided some information on what other cities are doing with shipping or storage containers. Some cities prohibit them altogether, and then some cities make them, they've got to look residential, like an accessory building. So you've kind of got the, both ends of the spectrum there. We're trying to be somewhere in the middle that, we could allow them on a residential basis in commercial areas as well. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Let's see, couple of questions.
Yeah.
So Mapleton, West Valley, Lehigh, Orem, Payson, not Payson, Sandy, St. George, Cedar Hills, Riverton, Holiday, Mill Creek, prohibit them. Why do we want to even permit them?
I think it's just allowing options for homeowners, for businesses. This all came about mainly because of a code enforcement issue we had recently. And I think, I've explained about that one, and we didn't have something in place. Luckily, we had already made an application on behalf of the city for this ordinance before those containers came in, and so we were able to do some enforcement on that. But
part of me says, why does Lindon want to permit something that makes us look not as attractive as those other communities? I don't know. The other part says, and if you go back to the residential area, if we are going to permit them, I think we need to be a little more stringent and say, for example, that they need to be painted or clad like the home. You've said that. That if they're they either have to be behind a straight line of the back of the house, or if they're back of the line of the front of the house, they have to be screened, or something like that. So the ones that I've seen in our community in residential areas just look like it came right off the ship. It's kind of unfair to neighbors.
So those that are already on residential lots, would they be required to fix those up and improve those?
Any structure that has gone through the process of getting a building permit, so we've got some that have actually gone through that process, they're permitted, and they are a structure, those would be grandfathered in. Anything that isn't is just a temporary, hasn't gone through that process of getting the necessary permits, that would just be a use that would be prohibited. Any structures,
they would have to.
They would be grandfathered, but it would just be like any other one of our ordinances saying, hey, we're not going to allow any cars in the backyard. That's retroactive when it applies across the board. So there would be a little bit of confusion. We'd have to go through a process to find out, okay, who's gone through what process and which of these are grandfathered. But it wouldn't be a blanket. If you have it on the property now, you're grandfathered.
And they should have got a building permit anyways, because it is an accessory building. It is over 120 square feet in most instances. And so they probably should have got one, and we probably should have enforced it.
Do you know how many of them have?
Just in my time, I'm just aware of one. So they're on
Most are not.
Lakeview and Gilman,
Most don't
I think.
have.
I don't think, yeah.
Okay.
And so they would be required to go through the process of fixing those up and improving their appearance.
Mm-hmm.
The one that you have, do
Okay,
the
and we
neighbors
will
are fine
allow
with it?
public comment in just a minute.
I missed that, sorry.
Oh, the one that was approved, did the neighbors, like, they were fine with it?
Oh, we didn't,
Mind?
yeah, nobody complained. The homeowner just came in, asked what he needed to do to,
Are
Make
you
it-
referring to the one on the corner of Gilman and Lakeview?
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know of anybody that's complained about it.
no.
You know, I can see your point, Rob, but there are some that would, you could probably go around and spend a week taking pictures, but there are some examples with some of our larger lots. You know, I can see why they don't do it in these areas where the average lot size is 6,000 square feet. You know, it doesn't make any sense, you know, but in Lindon, there's some neighbors that would probably appreciate their people putting all their junk in a container and painting it than just leaving, you know, broken down stuff all over the place. And
These aren't cheap. I mean,
No.
they're $3,000 for
you know, I
a
mean,
container.
I know what you're saying, but there are plenty of examples of a bunch of junk just all over the
Well,
place.
The one I would bring up that you're all aware of on Locust and Fort North have a couple of containers and they've got junk everywhere.
Besides,
But there has been some cleaning up going
No,
on
the only
there.
thing they did is scrape the weeds.
Well, there have been a few cars in that hauled off. Yeah,
They hauled them in and stripped them and then hauled them off, so.
okay,
Yeah.
or maybe so.
So I don't want you to feel any pressure to forward this. If there's things you think we want to fully still consider on this, I mean, there's no pressure to, you know, pass it tonight. So I want you to feel comfortable with it.
Well, my point was, you know, why are we doing it? And then if we are gonna do it, let's tighten the screws a little bit and make them
Okay.
nice. You know, like I said,
I think
I think
there's,
you could have a container and paint it and it'd
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
nice.
I think there's a place for them if
Yeah.
you're building. I think those would be very good to have even if you're remodeling, you know, but
Storage
those are temporary things. But I would still like to leave in, and it sounds like we have, if you wanted to use those and get a building permit in some type of a structure. So, you know, you say one on a residential lot, but if somebody wanted to use it for an agricultural, and I'm seeing these pop up and pictures of them online, where you've got two shipping containers and have a roof that spans those, and you've got horse stalls underneath there, and you're using the shipping containers for hay storage and that kind of thing, that should be permitted. You know, they should get a building permit to do that. But I like that idea. I think that's a really,
And I don't think
Neat way to use
I don't think this ordinance prohibits you from doing that.
Don't-
You're actually
yeah.
putting a structure
yeah, and you're getting a permit and,
together, yes.
yeah,
Or even a home office?
Maybe,
or a cool man cave, or a she shed, or whatever, you know, let's be.
maybe, because we just got one resident here, maybe we could go ahead and hear your comments. You've been so patient to wait here all evening, and then we could close the public hearing and have our discussion among us.
Since
So-
this has been such a great.
Tell us your name again.
Miss Terry,
Terry.
can we have you come up to the
Yeah,
microphone?
come up.
You bet.
It's
I
just,
talk so
there's a
loud
lot of
anyway,
people that
people usually
live,
want me to
well, there's a lot of
shut up.
people that are online, so they can hear you better.
I was getting down back there. My name is Deanne Terry. And from the experience I have had, I still have 2 shipping containers that are this close to my property line.
But that's gone down by, there's a lot of those that have been moved out, right?
Yeah, but these 2 have been there forever. And Mike, I just have some questions on that. You mentioned 2 within the green belt. What does green belt have? Green belt's for tax purposes.
But it sets a size of 5 1/4 acres minimum to be.
Yeah,
in
but green belt, if you have one lot that's 5 1/4, you can add other pieces
No,
to
you're-
it.
You're right, you can't in another non-detached area.
Right, you could add a ½ acre to it if you have one piece in Utah County that's 5 1/4, so
It's
I don't
getting more
know.
difficult to do
I
that.
don't know what the green belt definition is, and just from my experience with what is happening behind me, and just to inform you people, the situation from when I spoke to you last, it's just got worse. And it's just, there's more and more and more and more junk that has been hauled in, and I just feel like if we do not tie in our rules to be more specific, somebody's gonna take them and run with them, which is exactly what has happened. And I have even tried to go with the nuisance ordinance with regard to junk, which in my opinion, most of the stuff in my behind my fence is junk, and have gotten nowhere with that, because they know how to play the game. But I just would like that defined, Mike. So do they still have to have a building permit if it's over that size? Does it still have to be anchored? And does it still have to be finished to look like something? Because, I mean, they don't have a house. Well, they have the house that they own, which gives them access to the lot. And then is the setback requirement 5 feet?
Yeah, so that's currently how it's drafted, is the setback is 5 feet. You would have to get a building permit, would have to be painted, and so yes, if the commission wants to consider a larger setback, so I was just going off of the setback for accessory buildings. If you wanted a larger setback, which maybe in the agricultural zone or agricultural use is appropriate, maybe it's 10 or 15 feet.
Because
Is that zoned agricultural?
It's zoned residential, but it's under Greenbelt.
R120, but the Greenbelt really shouldn't have any classification. I mean, it shouldn't have anything to do with it. Greenbelt has to do with taxes only.
Well, what this is trying to do is trying to distinguish, because we can have half an acre, or 2 acres, and somebody could go through and farm and say, hey, this is agricultural, I get 2 of them. By adding the Greenbelt definition saying, okay, you can do agricultural, but it has to be a big enough agricultural operation that you can meet the Greenbelt requirements.
Yeah, but Brian,
and I get it, on this particular piece, I see what you're saying, and so we
is
probably need to
Greenbelt.
look at it. It is Greenbelt.
Yeah,
And
but I
with the-
have 6 acres in Spanish Fork that's in Greenbelt. If I have a half-acre lot, I
Right.
can add that as Greenbelt.
I was gonna say, that's a point we probably need to go and look at. When we were talking Greenbelt, that's a ready-made definition that's been litigated 1,000 times over, so it's a good definition. But you're right, in this case, when you start adding that piecing, maybe we wanna go back and say, okay, maybe we look at just a particular acreage requirement.
Yeah, I just think
instead of
we
just
have to
doing
be
Greenbelt.
so definitive in that, because
Right.
what has happened with all of the implements that have been brought in, because we're not specific on that, there's no end to what is being brought in.
That's what we were trying to do, was
Yeah.
just say, hey, you can't just have an acre and say, okay, I'm gonna plant corn on a 1/4 acre, and that's agricultural.
Well, I can
get
see
2 of
where it's a
these.
challenge, but
So-
just based on what has already happened, I think you have to be absolutely specific, because I've seen what's happening. So I think if that's zoned R120, which means nothing to the owner. If it's going to be used in an agricultural way, I think it has to be used more definitive. And then where that is also a landlocked piece of property, and it says there's no setback requirements, and I think there has to be something specific that overrides the fact that there are no setback requirements. Because I still have 2 shipping containers that are this close to my property line, along with 70 other pieces of junk that will never be used and never be moved. And I just think we need to be more specific in the ordinance, because the ordinance we have regarding what is being done now means nothing, and it is being abused, and we need a new ordinance to take care of that problem.
Well, thank you. That helps us to understand a lot of things
And-
too.
Mike, are the two shipping containers that are up against my fence, what are they considered? Are they still considered temporary?
So,
They've never been opened, they've never
Yes,
been
we-
How long
touched,
have they
they've,
been there?
the,
too long.
the
How
note,
long is that?
the
I don't
notice,
know.
the notice we gave, that person gave them 6 months, or they needed to get a building permit. I don't think the 6 month,
I think we're getting close.
Yeah,
but
we're
I
getting
don't think
close.
We're to the end of that. We'll look at that, Deanne, and.
Okay, well, I
Because
would
He has
appreciate
been
it.
given notice that he needs to get them made permanent or move them.
And then originally, when you talked about having two, I know that you guys had talked about requiring them that they be hooked together or something, you know. But I would just appreciate some relief in,
Well, as far as the shipping containers themselves, I mean, that's what we're trying to address in this
Right.
ordinance. As far as the additional things that are being stored on the property,
yeah,
this
I'm not
ordinance
addressing,
doesn't.
I know, I understand that.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying, the other ordinance does not have enough teeth to enforce anything that has gone on that property, and I would appreciate it if this is specific enough
right.
to have something that's enforceable.
As far
And
as the
Greenbelt
shipping
is not
containers
gonna do it,
themselves.
because they could have a half acre that's joined, you know, whereas the commercial farm zone has to be contiguous. Greenbelt doesn't have to be contiguous, you can join it with another parcel. So,
Those are some very good
Yes.
points.
And just for your information, it looks like it must be conjoined, because the parcel in back of hers, at least what I'm looking at on Utah County, is just a teeny bit over 3 acres.
it is a 3 acre
So if it's
piece,
in
Mark.
Greenbelt, which it could be, it might be conjoined with the parcel across the street on.
It is, and that's
that you-
legal, and
Yeah.
they moved it into Greenbelt immediately, even though they couldn't access it for 8 years,
Okay.
so.
Some of those things, it sounds like, need to still be addressed with staff, and we appreciate you bringing a
Well-
lot of the shipping container.
Brian has spent a lot of
Information.
time with me, and Carolyn has, and I understand that.
Oh,
The
that's
code
great.
just isn't strong enough, and I appreciate that. We need a new code, and Rob, you had a question?
Well, I don't want to be curt on this, but what is that guy, he doesn't sound like he's cooperative with you. What is he gonna have to do to make you feel good?
Well, Rob, he wrote me a text that said that they have more combines that they're thinking about moving in, but
Yeah.
he doesn't want to be spiteful. And I think that in a
Well, I guess
nutshell
my point
is
is,
the,
he's
is the point.
probably not gonna clean that lot up and make it a beautiful vacant lot again.
No,
So maybe
nothing
the
has
thing to
been
do is to
used,
fence it.
Rob. Nothing has been, well, but that's just giving him license, is to require him to fence it. That's making
No,
it
no,
a
I'm
commercial
saying-
farm.
If I was you, I would fence it with a site obscuring fence, so I didn't have to look at that.
So it's my expense.
Well, whose is it?
I have 2 homes. I have 225 feet of
But
property
But there's
there.
only so much that we can legally require of him. He can put a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
can't he?
And you
So it's
can,
not gonna get better. I mean, it could get better.
well, it could get better if he would make it better, but
But he's not.
nothing, 60 loads, nothing has been used, nothing has been moved, nothing has been changed. It's just, and
So what you
it's
would
not
like
usable.
is-
It's
so-
not even usable.
So what would you would like besides just, I mean, the shipping containers, is our ordinance being more specific so that he
Well-
was required and regulated to?
I'm
on what he
actually
could
gonna
do.
consult with other cities, and see what their codes are, and I'm actually
I
gonna
think
get
that
with
would be
people,
great.
and I'm gonna have to present a new ordinance, I guess, to the
And-
city,
And you can do that,
yeah.
and then
But
the
I
city
don't
will
think that's
consider
my
that.
job. I don't think that's my job. I think the city needs to protect me in a residential zone.
Okay.
Instead of letting another landowner come in and just take advantage and be spiteful.
I understand the frustration,
And
for
if you
sure.
still haven't seen what I'm talking about, Mike, have you seen behind there?
And
If
I
you still
driven down
haven't
there.
seen it, please come and look, and
I-
it's getting worse.
It would
Last
be
week-
difficult for me too. It
Last
would.
week, stuff was hauled in all day long. And I heard the young driver say, "Where should I put that?" And he said, "Right up against that fence line." So I appreciate what
Well,
you're doing, I appreciate your efforts, and I know it's late, but I am begging something to be, you just tie it in so that there's not little loopholes that can be
Okay.
jumped through, because there are artists that know how to jump through them.
That's true.
I appreciate
Thank you so much for being here with us. Okay, why don't we go ahead and close the public hearing now so we can discuss
I move that we
the
close the
shipping
public hearing.
containers. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. Okay, as far as the ordinance for the portable shipping containers, it doesn't sound like we're quite ready to go ahead and pass that yet.
Couple things I noted was just to look at the setbacks,
Right, that
look
was
at the
my
screening requirements, and then look at that green belt acreage requirement with Brian.
I agree.
Mike, there was another suggestion I thought was really good, is that we look at lot sizes.
Yeah.
On smaller lots, we just prohibit them outright. So maybe we can look at that too.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
idea.
So as far as tonight, I think we've given you feedback on the containers.
Yep.
And Mrs. Terry has given you a lot of feedback, and I know you've had discussions there also as far as other frustrations. But on the containers, it sounds like we're probably wanting to continue that.
Sounds great.
So do I have a motion
I'll make the
on that?
motion.
Okay.
I move to recommend a continuance to let staff continue to study and tweak this ordinance, and bring it back at some future date.
Okay. I have a motion to.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion and a second to continue. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. So, thank you for being here with us. You've got a lot of concerns.
I don't envy any of you what you're trying to do.
Okay, the item number 9 is also a public hearing. So I need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The voting's unanimous. Okay, and this is an ordinance amendment on single-family residential. The applicant is Lindon City. Representing staff is Mary Barnes.
Thank you. I'll try make this one quick, hopefully. So this ordinance amendment is an update of the single-family residential chapter, specifically to add in the other single-family zones, Anderson Farms Plan Development, the Plan Residential Development Overlay, and then also the R3 Overlay. I want to be clear that although all 3 zones have multifamily housing, this is just the single-family aspect of all 3 of these zones, and no changes to the R1 zones have been made with this ordinance amendment. Essentially, instead of, so some issues have come up over the past year or so, specifically with projections into yards with these zones, and we thought instead of, and I mean, like the accessory building code technically applies to these zones as well, so instead of amending all 3 of these code chapters for these 3 zones, instead we would put them all together in the single-family residential chapter. So I go through in-depth analysis of each section of the single-family residential chapter 17.44. I really just want to focus on the projections into yards and the lot coverage. As you read, there's essentially these projections into yards requirements were built in for larger lot sizes and larger setbacks. Now that we have smaller lot sizes, smaller setbacks, they don't quite work anymore. We've had many complaints of people saying that my neighbor's building wants to build a staircase that is way too close to my property line. What if my kids fall in? You know, that kind of thing. And then we've put this together to kind of try and curb those things and create a place for projections into yards to happen while also preserving backyards, side yards, front yards. So, for example, projections into yards code, I'll just go with the staircase one, which is the main one. It allows a staircase to project 4 feet into required side yard. That works great with a 10-foot required side yard, which is what is required in the R1 zones. But in the, for example, the Anderson Farm Zone, that's a 6-foot side yard. In some cases, that would leave a 2-foot remainder between the edge of the staircase and your neighbor's property line. And I included some examples there of what has been approved, you know, within the past year. And I can go more into depth with that. But what we're proposing is that if there's a minimum required setback that's less than 10 feet on the side yard, the listed items may project into a side yard as long as a 4-foot setback is maintained. So, you know, if
4-foot setback from the extension.
From the projection to the property line. So if you have an 8-foot side yard, so R3 overlay, the Fieldstone homes, they can go down to 8 feet, you know, at the smallest, at the minimum. So they could project 4 feet into that and still have 4 feet. So it doesn't super affect the R3 overlay at all. But the Anderson Farms planned development, specifically the Anderson Gardens area, where they had what was meant to be the 55-plus housing. They're very small lots there. So they all have like 6-foot setbacks, and that's going to affect them. But also having such a small section in between, I mean, you could put a fence there, I guess, to make sure that no kids are going to fall into this, you know, basement walkout. But then if you put a fence up, you still only have 2 feet of access back there. What if a fire happens? Emergency personnel trying to get to the backyard. It's just not viable, and that's what we've found throughout all the different complaints that we've gotten over the past year. Many of them. Anyways, so that's the main one within the projections into yards code. We also have the deck and shade structure right now. I mean, in R1 zones, the required, rear setback is 30 feet, and you're allowed to project into that 12 feet. In Anderson Gardens, again, this is where most of the issues are happening, but in Anderson Gardens, the required rear yard setback is 12 feet. So to be able to project into that 12 feet would take up an entire backyard. So what we are proposing is that the minimum rear yard setback, if the minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet, the listed structures must maintain a 10-foot setback from the rear property line. So, for example, in the PRD overlay, they have a 15-foot, rear yard setback. That doesn't mean that the house itself would be built at that 15-foot line, but if it was, they could have a 5-foot shade structure projecting off their house. Patio cover or a deck or something, but they have to keep 10 feet of yard open, and with a projection, I should say. Depending on lot coverage, they could do and setbacks, they could do like an accessory building or something, like a small tough shed or something back there. But this is projections of the house can only be in the area that we've kind of outlined there.
Are you getting a lot of requests for this, or is?
Yeah, we had one actually. We've had about 2 or 3 this year, all in Anderson Farms.
To be honest with you, most of them are people telling us they're putting in a second kitchen,
And that's, yeah,
but they're actually
Putting in an apartment.
putting in an
that's
apartment.
what the suspicion is.
So,
But we get them to sign the second kitchen agreement, but then the only way to regulate that is to get a complaint and then reach out to them. But if they say, well, it's my family,
My daughter.
it's my daughter and she's just living there during college, but, you know, she also has a husband and 3 kids, and then, you know, it's a bit difficult. So if we were able to limit basement walkouts, at least in the areas where they are extremely small spaces, then it could have a secondary effect of keeping that under control at least a little more. That's the hope, at
People
least.
who buy those, when they buy them, they expect that they're gonna have to adhere to that. Now, maybe once they've been there a few years, they want to do something, but I think they should understand.
our biggest hurdle has been the real estate agents. They'll come in and say, well, my real estate agent says I can put a basement apartment in here.
Yeah.
Be like, no.
You know, and we're like, no, here's the ordinance, and so.
Realtors.
I know.
Don't represent things the way they should.
Okay, so I did a little research onto what other people in the county do with their projections into yards. Of course, it's all over the map. There's not really a clear trend there. So I think with this ordinance amendment, it's just taking what we have said and then applying it, you know, better to the small, making it fit the smaller lots better, whereas the larger lots it's leaving them alone.
Well, basically, the biggest things are just that you gotta have at least 10 feet rear setback and 4 feet
Side yard, exactly.
side yard from any kind of extension, and the buildings can't cover over 50%.
Yeah, that's the other one, the lot coverage. So right now, Fieldstone homes, so the R3 overlay and both R1 zones have a 40% lot yard coverage, and that makes sense. They are bigger lots. The smallest, you know, Fieldstone home is like 8,500 square feet, but then the smallest Anderson Farms home is 4,895, and the smallest PRD, well, sorry, not home, lot. The smallest PRD single-family lot is 5,000. So these are much, much, much smaller lots, and to build on them with a lot coverage requirement of 40%, you could come out of compliance. In fact, some of the Anderson Farms homes would be out of compliance with a 40% lot coverage. So we bumped that up to 50%. That's what we're proposing tonight for AFPD and PRD. That's the only place it would, only places it would affect. And so that would mean, you know, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, 50% of that could be covered with building. But that's only, I mean.
And Mary's done a lot of checking. She's went through tons of homes down at Anderson Farms.
That's true.
Over at the new Songbird Cove, she's measured all those lots, all the sizes of the homes, to make sure we're not hurting anybody in the future to.
Yeah, the amount of
That's why-
research you've done on this is incredible.
I don't want anyone to get mad at me. That's
Well,
my
on
driving
all of
factor.
these public hearing things, I mean, both of you, I mean, just an incredible amount of work and research to putting all this together.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that with lot coverage, even if they are allowed to cover half of their lot, there's still the setbacks that factor in. There's still a distance from the building requirement, which is 10 feet, which means a lot of these smaller lots can't build, you know, or put something there. And that's
An accessory building.
an accessory building, that's what I'm talking about, to cover the lot even more. So this is more to ensure it could allow some of these smaller lots to cover more of their yard, but it's definitely still setback requirements that will regulate that.
So have a lot of these that have been concerns, do they back the 55+ community?
It's mostly just in the Anderson, like that 55
Anderson,
plus. And
that-
then
yeah.
also, I can't
Do you know what I'm
remember what the
saying?
plat is, but the Ledgebrook Lane plat, I can show it to you. There's been a few in there
The
as well.
55 plus is kind of in the middle of Fieldstone and Anderson
So
Farms.
that's different, because those are duplexes, they're classified multifamily. They're
yeah.
not a part of it, but, I'll show you the 55 plus Anderson Farms I'm talking about.
Okay, because I'm like, there's
So-
homes that back that 55 plus.
Yeah, so these are the duplexes with the creek side, and this is the Anderson Farms Gardens plat,
Okay.
55 plus, and this is the picture I pulled. There's that little basement walkout, and here's that property line. This guy wasn't too happy. But, you know, it happens quite a lot down there, and then there's been a few in here, and at least one in this Plat G area.
Now, just in that example, did that guy, he put in a walkout basement after?
Yeah, so he
He
moved
moved in.
in, he put in a walkout basement,
Did
and
he get a permit?
he did, and he did a second
Yeah,
kitchen
they
as
met
well.
the ordinance.
Uh-huh.
That's why we're looking at it.
That's why we're looking at it, to make sure it doesn't quite happen again.
Okay.
Preferably, it's happened like maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 times. Uh-huh.
I'm ready to make a motion on, I think we get her done, get it
Okay.
done, so that,
Let's go ahead and
yeah.
close the public hearing, because we didn't do that. We've
I'll
done
move
so
to close
much
the
of it.
public hearing.
Okay, and I'll move to second it.
I wanted to say one thing, sorry. So your ordinance amendment in your packet, I changed it a little. Under number of dwellings per lot, I changed it. So it used to say, let me pull up what it used to say. Don't worry, I didn't say they can have like 5,000 dwellings on a lot. Not to worry. Well, it looks like it's not loading, but it used to say basically accessory apartments are not permitted in these areas subject to 1746-100. I changed it to say, so it'll say in the R3 overlay, PRD, and AFPD, not more than one single-family dwelling may be placed on a lot subject to the requirements in 1746-100, which that's the accessory apartment code. So the reason I changed that so it doesn't say accessory apartments are not allowed is because if code ever changes, I don't want to have to come in, change this as well. State code is changing every single year on the accessory apartments, so that's just to help us in the future. We'll just change the accessory apartment code instead of this one. So that's the one change. Oh, and then also, if you wanted to know, let's see. I changed a, oh man, I can't find it. Yeah, okay. So, oh, here it is, permissible lot coverage. This number 2 used to be number 4. I changed it back up to number 2 because it's talking about the 40%. So that's all. I didn't change any language, just changed the ordering of the bullet points. So those are the 2 changes I made today.
I don't have a problem with that. Okay, so are we ready to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. Now, is there any additional discussion, or are you ready for a motion?
Didn't you say you're ready for a motion, Mike?
Yeah,
Let's go ahead,
I think we
Mike.
get it done, yep. I move to recommend approval of ordinance amendment 2023-14-0 as presented with any aforementioned changes that Mary had in mind.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, that should end all those public hearings. But I just have one question. With listening to Mrs. Terry tonight, is there not anything that protects someone from the amount or the type of equipment brought onto a property?
Not if it's being used for agricultural purposes, and I've gone out there personally and walked it with her, and yeah, a lot of the stuff looks like crap, but it's farm equipment and it probably will work.
Yeah.
You might have to tighten some things, you might have to replace some hoses, but it's not stay. And so, there were a couple things that were junk, and we've noticed him, he's gotta get rid of that, an old broken down shed, those little tin sheds that, and things like that. But he is farming it, stuff is growing on that acreage. So I can understand her frustration 100%, but there are specific exceptions for farm equipment. We can't, the way we do our nuisance violations is if it's unregistered, it's, a vehicle. If you got a car in the back here that's not behind a site obscuring fence, if it's unregistered, that's a nuisance. If it's registered, then we can't do anything about it. With farm equipment, we can't rely on registration because the state doesn't require you to register it. And so we have to go in and prove that it's inoperable, that it cannot be made to work. And I just, I've walked that with her, and I feel where she's coming from. I've made the suggestion about a good fence makes a great neighbor.
Well, she has it in her mind, he's gonna put in a fence, he's not gonna put in.
Yeah, and I feel for her, I really do. But we're doing everything that we can do, we are doing. And that's why this container, there were at least 10, and I think there were 12 shipping containers in there. And he started cutting banks back, and we came in and said, you can't do that, you gotta put a retaining wall in there. So I pushed the dirt back, and he is, after telling us where we could go a few times, he is starting to listen to us and work with us. So, but there's a lot of friction.
So how does the Greenbelt protect owners from?
She's right in that sense that Greenbelt really is a tax thing, and it really doesn't do much here. If it's, agricultural uses are permitted uses in our residential zone. And so,
It doesn't matter if it's green belted or not.
right.
I look back on the county records and that's been green belted since 2016 and
Yeah.
it's more being used agricultural now than it was in the last, before Cooks bought it.
Right, right. And so in our container ordinance, we were just trying to get an easy connection, but she makes a good point on the aggregation. I think we're gonna go back and look.
I think the city was just using that as a standard of.
It's a ready-made
Yeah,
standard
yeah.
that's been litigated and reviewed, and everybody knows what it is and what it means. So that's why we went to default.
Appreciate you helping me understand that. The only other thing I have is, isn't there a fall conference coming up?
There is, yes. I've been meaning to send you,
Okay, I know
It's-
it came out quite a while ago.
yeah,
but-
it's in Ogden this year.
Uh-huh.
And so if you'd like to go, let me know. I'll send you some information on that tomorrow.
I'd like the information.
Okay.
Okay. And then I have noticed a few improvements on 400 North.
I haven't.
Just a few.
I think you're talking about the scraping of the weeds.
Yeah, but that helps a little bit.
The weeds actually cover up more, they help.
Okay, well,
I'll just take 1 minute and go through what we're looking at possibly for the next planning commission meeting. You've got the Avalon Apartments right here. This property owner has this property to the north under contract. He would like to add 30 more units right here. So he is going to be requesting a zone change for that. We're expecting that application to come in, and so that'll be something for you to consider.
30 more units of Avalon type?
Yes.
who owns that?
Will it be part of the Avalon project?
It will, yes.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it'll combine into one development.
I see.
Who's the one?
Craig Meekum, I think his name.
So it's not Jeff Souther?
No, Craig, I think, bought everybody out. So there's that one. There's over by where we were looking tonight. This building here, they're looking at doing a 24,000 square foot addition onto that one. We are looking at updating our nuisance code with the fines requirement to come into compliance with state laws. It's a simple change. just saying what, state law requires certain amounts for fines and fees. We're just adopting the state requirement. We're also looking at a clear view requirement on driveways. We have a policy we've been using, but we probably need to codify that. And then that project over on, if you remember Lucas Collier, the one that the Board of Adjustment gave a variance on, and you guys subdivided it. That's right, this property right here.
Yeah.
He's looking at doing a duplex there. It'd fill up that last district for a duplex, so.
Yeah, I've had a few neighbors hit me up about that, and I basically, I wasn't aware there was any room left in that district, and so I basically said, well, that's not what's been approved so far. So is that gonna need to come to us for duplex? But there is one more unit available?
Yeah, Mary went out and counted them a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I looked at building permits.
What's that?
I said I looked at all the building permits, make sure they're all duplexes. Yeah, there's 2 units available in District 15, so that would close it out. And it's got the separation distance from everyone else as well.
Yeah.
So
I wondered if that must be the case,
yeah.
that they were, but he, well, that never come, up to us at the time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it'd make any difference, I just wasn't aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the main things we're looking at next time.
Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot of public hearings.
Yeah, at least 2 maybe,
Yeah, but not 9.
but simpler ones, so.
Ugh. Okay, well, if you don't have anything
No,
else,
that's it.
then let's,
Could I just
go ahead.
After we adjourn, I'm doing this little article for the newsletter about what the planning commission is, how to find agendas, and how to watch it every Tuesday. We've kind of talked about that in the past. Could I get a picture of all of you together?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah.
I'll just say not pictures, Scott Thompson.
Except we don't have Scott, but,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And I had just one thought with Brian or whatever. I mean, the ordinance obviously wasn't written well to put residential there. Would it help a developer to have some type of, and Brian, maybe you'll say steer away from this, but some type of letter that we're open to a development that would include it as long as, it met our design?
Yeah, I think we've communicated that to them, well, I don't know.
I think we communicated it, but I don't know.
That we're willing to look at development agreements where we'll sit down and we'll hash out exactly what it would be. But yeah, the thought of making something, a permitted or even a conditional use is really scary. It's just really scary. Without a development agreement, I would recommend we don't change anything without a development agreement. So maybe if we put out there, hey, we're willing to look at development agreements, and that's what we were doing with the several parties who came in. But again, they wanted everything up front, and all the commercial would be, oh, I'm sure they'll come. If you build it, they will come.
Right, and that really worries me, that idea, but, so I don't know if there was something.
Well, and I get worried too, because again, I don't have a lot of faith in UDOT, but another 1,100 units.
Oh,
I mean, what they've been doing on 700 North is not even close to gonna be adequate with another just 1,100 that it sounds like have already been approved by PG.
Have they been approved?
The PG signed a development agreement for the 1,100 units. Now, they are looking at a new interchange, a partial interchange
A
there at
partial
2000
interchange over
2000
on the other overpass might turn into an interchange.
Yes, but it's more of just, let me show you here real quick.
Yeah, you got a drawing on that, because
Actually, all those units, I'm glad they're not in our city, but they'll help our.
They'll use our roads.
it should, but it's not gonna help the traffic at all. I mean,
This one you would, you'll get off here,
You're gonna need some good sleep.
get off the interchange,
Work for you.
and then take a frontage road up to the PG interchange.
I see.
and then you can get on right here and get off right there.
Okay.
Kinda like the, down at Triumph Boulevard.
Yeah.
You're gonna let
I
us
see.
pick first?
That's what it's gonna be patterned after?
Yeah, that's something along those lines.
That Triumph Boulevard actually works pretty well.
I always miss the freeway, the first freeway exit. I mean, entrance, I always miss it.
You know, it's interesting, you go to
don't mind if I do.
California,
Yeah.
they have a lot of little exits and on-ramps,
I don't know,
Yeah.
chocolate.
not these huge like Pleasant Grove
Yeah.
Yeah,
things, and I think they serve us better.
yeah, the third or fourth time I did Triumph, I figured it out.
It's nice once you
Yeah,
figure it
it
out.
really is.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Let's go this way.
okay, here come the cookies.
Do we
Are
did we already
ready
make a motion
the
to
meeting?
adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sure not. Well, I just want to thank Mike
Always a
and Mary,
new
though. I
twist,
mean,
isn't there?
we felt
It's
like
like
we've
a
done,
graham- or
we've
a
gone through a lot
cereal.
tonight, but
Honey
can you
graham.
imagine what the preparation
Yeah,
was behind
yeah.
this, so.